Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, the suburban high school was nothing special. The long hallways, old classrooms, and bathrooms at the end of the row always smelled of mold. That was also the beginning of one of the scary stories that shook the town. It all started with a seemingly harmless game, but turned into a nightmare. Michael was an 8th grader, a quiet, reserved boy who was often teased by his classmates. However, one afternoon in early autumn, it was Michael who initiated this creepy idea. He brought to class an old notebook that he said he found in the attic of his house. The yellowed pages recorded mysterious rituals, including a ritual of summoning spirits in a mirror. Michael said that this ritual had been passed down by word of mouth in town for many years, associated with the strange disappearance of a female student. After hearing this, the group of friends, including Sarah, Kevin, and Lisa, could not contain their curiosity. At the age of 13, ghost pranks always brought a feeling of both fear and excitement. Sarah, with her bold personality, immediately agreed. She sneered, saying that all ghost stories were just fiction to scare children. Kevin and Lisa were hesitant, but under Sarah's challenging eyes and Michael's encouragement, the group finally agreed to try. According to the notebook, the ritual must be performed in the bathroom at night, with only the light of a candle placed in front of a mirror. The participant must stand facing the mirror, close their eyes, and whisper the name of the person they want to call 3 times. Then, if they open their eyes and see a strange figure in the mirror, they absolutely must not turn away, just blink, or step back, and the spirit will find a way to escape. The next day, when the school bell rang, the 4 children secretly stayed behind at school. The hallway was quiet, with only the sound of the wind whistling through the windows. They took the candle they had prepared and went into the bathroom at the end of the row. The wooden door creaked open. A musty smell rushed straight into the nose. The mirror hanging on the wall was old. The glass cracked into many long lines, like deeply carved scars. Michael placed the notebook on the sink, lit the candle, and placed it right in the middle. The small flame flickered, reflecting in the mirror into a pale halo. The space suddenly became eerily quiet. Sarah took a deep breath, confidently stepping forward, her eyes full of challenge. The girl placed her hand on the sink, looking straight into the mirror. Sarah's voice echoed in the small room, steadily reading a strange name, the name Michael found in the notebook. Repeated 3 times, the sound seemed to blend into the cold air. Kevin held Lisa's hand tightly, both of them trembling but still following her every move. The moment Sarah opened her eyes, the group almost held their breath. At first, the mirror simply reflected the faces of 4 children and the flickering candlelight. But then, something unusual happened. Behind Sarah in the mirror, there was a faint shadow, much taller, with an unclear face. Kevin screamed, jerking back, causing Lisa to almost fall. Michael bit his lips, trembling violently, but his eyes were still glued to the mirror. Sarah paled, trying to stay calm, but her hands were cold. The shadow seemed to be getting closer, becoming clearer and clearer. The figure was thin, long hair covering her face. The room suddenly became cold, like the middle of winter. The candle flickered as if it was about to go out. Sarah quickly turned her face away, gasping for breath. Immediately, a rattling sound came from the mirror, like fingernails scratching glass. Lisa screamed, rushed to the door, but it had already slammed shut. Michael quickly flipped through the notebook, trying to end the ritual, but the scribbled lines made him panic and not know what to do. The shadow in the mirror was close to Sarah's back. A pale, bony hand reached out from the crack in the glass, as if to grab her. In the chaos, the candle went out. The whole room was plunged into darkness. Screams echoed, then silence. When Kevin turned on his phone flashlight, Sarah had disappeared. Only the mirror was left with a new crack, running long like a torn wound. The three children were stunned, panicked to the extreme. Lisa sobbed, Kevin trembled, and Michael could only mumble incessantly. They could not believe that the séance had turned into a real nightmare. That night, Sarah's family called the police because their daughter did not come home. The entire school was locked down. The bathroom where the group of friends performed the ritual was sealed, but no one found any trace of Sarah. The police concluded that she had mysteriously disappeared. Only the three remaining friends knew the truth, but they did not dare to speak out. They knew that if they revealed the mirror séance, no one would believe them, and the fear of the spirit's revenge made all three of them stay silent. But that was just the beginning, because since the day Sarah disappeared, in the mirrors all over the school, there was always a shadowy figure appearing when the night fell. The story is not over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode, where the creepy secrets of the mirror séance will gradually be revealed. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk after Sarah disappeared, the atmosphere at school changed dramatically. The usually noisy hallways became strangely quiet, and students whispered about the mysterious disappearance. Teachers assured them that the police were doing their best, but no one believed that an 8th grade girl could suddenly disappear without a trace. Fear spread like an epidemic. Michael, Kevin, and Lisa kept their secret in silence. All three knew that anyone who heard the story of the mirror ritual would think it was a lie. But in their hearts, each of them was deeply haunted. Lisa cried every night, dreaming of that pale hand pulling Sarah into the mirror. Kevin was so scared that he didn't dare look in the mirror every time he washed his face. Michael was tormented because he was the one who initiated it, bringing that haunted book to class. A week passed. The incident gradually calmed down in the eyes of adults, but to the students, the rumors became more and more terrifying. Some people said they saw Sarah's shadow wandering the school hallways at night. Some swore they saw her face flashing in the girls' bathroom mirror. All of this only added to the creepy and haunting atmosphere of the school. One afternoon after school, Lisa accidentally walked through the empty hallway. When she passed the mirror hanging near the stairs, she caught a glimpse of her own reflection that didn't match her real movements. Her heart clenched, her legs trembled. For a split second, the shadow in the mirror tilted its head slightly. A faint smile flashed across it, but Lisa stood motionless. When she turned away, the hallway was still empty. Only a chill ran down her spine. Lisa immediately told Michael and Kevin. Both were shocked. Kevin confessed that a few days ago, when he looked in the bathroom mirror at home, he heard a tapping sound from behind the glass. Michael didn't hide it anymore. He said he kept dreaming of Sarah standing in the mirror, her black eyes empty, raising her hands for help. The three began to believe that the ritual had not ended. The shadow they had summoned was still around, and Sarah had been trapped inside the mirror. The truth terrified them, but they did not dare to share it with anyone. One night, Michael decided to open the old notebook again. The yellow light of the desk lamp illuminated the faint lines. Flipping through the pages, he discovered a scribbled note at the end. When the ritual is interrupted, the spirit will not return. It will hide in the mirror, hunting for the eyes of the summoner. Only by repeating the ritual with the original. For people can the door be opened again. Michael was stunned. The original 4 were now only 3. Sarah was missing, so how could the ritual be completed? He sat there for hours, his mind in turmoil between fear and guilt. Meanwhile, Kevin began to show strange signs. He often lost focus in class, occasionally staring into space. Friends saw Kevin whispering to himself, as if talking to someone. One time, Lisa caught him standing in front of the mirror in the lab, smiling strangely. When Lisa called, Kevin was startled. His eyes were red as if he hadn't slept for days. Lisa panicked and told Michael. They both believed that Kevin was being pulled in by something, just like Sarah before. The shadow in the mirror seemed to be trying to replace him, to lure in new victims. They both decided to stop him before it was too late. That night, they arranged to meet Kevin at the school library, hoping to convince him to stop looking in the mirror. But when they got there, Kevin was already sitting. In front of him was Michael's notebook, which he didn't know why it was there. His eyes were empty. His voice was steady, as if it came from far away. Kevin said that Sarah was still alive, and he heard her calling from the mirror every night. He believed that if they repeated the ritual, they could save Sarah. Michael panicked and snatched the notebook back, yelling that it was just a trap. But Kevin didn't listen. He shouted, thinking that his friends didn't understand and were abandoning Sarah. The heated argument made Lisa cry. At that moment, a mirror hanging at the end of the library cracked. Everyone looked toward it. The glass shook. A new crack appeared that stretched like a red line of blood. And in the mirror, a blurry figure appeared, a face identical to Sarah's, but distorted eyes, lifeless. The figure moved its lips slightly, as if calling Kevin's name. No one doubted it anymore. Sarah still existed somewhere inside the mirror, but it wasn't the Sarah they knew. What was calling out was a monstrous mixture of their friends' souls and the darkness outside. The 3 of them were stunned, then panicked and ran out of the library. But from that moment, they understood that this terrible game was not over. It was going further, and the price to pay could be even more terrible than Sarah's disappearance. At night, when Michael lay in bed, he dreamed of the mirror again. This time it was not just Sarah, but himself, Kevin and Lisa, all standing next to each other, but with dark eyes and twisted smiles. Michael woke up with a start, cold sweat running down his back. The darkness in the room made him shiver. But the worst thing was when Michael caught a glimpse of the mirror by his desk. There, he saw himself standing, but the face in the mirror did not move. It just smiled coldly, its eyes filled with menace. The story does not end here. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens when the shadow in the mirror starts to reach out from the other world. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. After the night of witnessing Sarah's distorted face appearing in the mirror in the library, the 3 children could no longer be at peace. The next day at school, all 3 were silent, their eyes vacant. It seemed that everyone around them also felt the unusual change. No one dared to mention Sarah's disappearance anymore, but the tense atmosphere that covered the whole school made the whole school sink into invisible fear. Michael hid the old notebook in his backpack. Every night he flipped through it and read. More. The lines were blurry, as if written in a hurry. Many passages were difficult to understand. He realized that the notebook not only recorded the ritual, but also contained vague warnings. There was a passage that said the soul trapped in the mirror would gradually merge with the summoned entity. When that happened, the imprisoned person would never return. Reading this, Michael broke out in a cold sweat. Meanwhile, Kevin became more and more distant. He often disappeared after school, and whenever Lisa or Michael found him, Kevin would stand near the mirrors that were hung all over the school. One time, Lisa passed by the lab and saw Kevin with his hand on the mirror, his lips moving as if he was talking to someone. When Lisa called out to him, Kevin just smiled faintly, his eyes sparkling with an unusual light. Lisa panicked and told Michael. They both began to believe that Kevin was being manipulated by the reflection in the mirror. Sarah might still be there, but perhaps the presence was no longer her that night. Michael decided to return to the library to investigate further. Lisa reluctantly followed, afraid that he would drag the group into trouble again. The library at night was cold and suffocatingly silent. The ceiling lights flickered, and every time the wind blew through the glass doors, there was a soft whistling sound. Michael opened the notebook in the middle of the wooden table, the flashlight from his phone illuminating the scribbled lines. A new note that he had never seen before appeared clearly. When one of the 4 disappears, the remaining ones will be bound forever. The shadow in the mirror will find the weakest one to replace the missing position. Michael's heart pounded, and he immediately thought of Kevin. Suddenly, a noise rang out from the end of the room. Both of them startled and looked back. The mirror hanging next to the bookshelf shook, cracks spreading. In the dim light, a face appeared. It was Sarah, but her face was pale, her eyes as black as a deep pit. She moved her lips, making a choking sound. Lisa was afraid and grabbed Michael's hand, but Michael squinted, trying to listen. Sarah's voice was faint but clear, calling Kevin's name, then whispered, "Bring him here." Both of them were stunned, understanding that the thing in the mirror was trying to lure Kevin into participating in the ritual again. When the mirror suddenly made a loud cracking sound, Lisa screamed. Sarah's image in the mirror twisted, her face changing constantly, sometimes smiling, sometimes screaming. The flashlight suddenly flickered and then went out. The whole room was plunged into darkness. At that moment, Michael felt a cold hand touch his shoulder. He turned around, but behind him was only empty space. Lisa was trembling, pointing at the mirror from inside. A bony arm was slowly reaching out, scratching the wooden floor, creating a terrifying sound. Michael panicked and pulled Lisa away from the library. But in the last moment of looking back, he clearly saw Kevin's shadow, reflected in the mirror, even though Kevin was not there. Fear surged, making Michael certain that Kevin was gradually belonging to the other world. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. The image of Sarah's pale arm and distorted face kept appearing in his mind. In his heart, he feared that if they didn't take action, Kevin would disappear like Sarah. But is there any way to stop the ritual when it has been broken? The next day, Kevin came to class looking haggard. He told Michael and Lisa that Sarah was waiting in the mirror, calling for help. Kevin insisted that he had to do the ritual again. His eyes were burning with fanaticism, making Michael shiver. He knew that if Kevin continued, there would be no turning back. Michael and Lisa discussed how to stop him, but while they were arguing, Kevin suddenly left. He headed straight for the bathroom where it all started. Michael and Lisa chased after him, their hearts pounding. They clearly felt that if Kevin repeated the ritual, all three of them would fall into an abyss with no way out. When they arrived, the bathroom door was ajar. From inside came a steady whisper. Kevin was calling Sarah's name in front of the mirror. The candlelight flickered through the crack in the door, Kevin's figure swaying with each call. Michael tried to rush in, but Lisa held him back. She whispered, in panic, that if they did, they would both be sucked into the ritual. Michael stood there, frozen, hearing the clicking of the mirror and the soft laughter coming from it. The story is not over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens when Kevin makes his final call to the mirror of fate. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, inside the dark. Bathroom, Kevin stood in front of the cracked mirror, the flickering candlelight reflecting on his face, making it look ghostly. Kevin's voice rang out steadily, repeating the name Michael had read in the notebook. Every time he called out, the mirror shook, making a slight cracking sound. Michael and Lisa held their breath outside the door, Lisa's hand gripping their friend's arm, trembling. They knew that if they let Kevin continue, something terrible would escape. But they also knew that rushing in now would be like pushing themselves into a trap. The candles suddenly flared up. Kevin's shadow stretched across the moldy wall. The boy's voice gradually changed, no longer the familiar voice, but mixed with a deep, hoarse sound, as if someone was repeating it at the same time. Michael was horrified when he realized that it wasn't just Kevin reading, but another voice was also echoing from inside the mirror. The glass cracked more, the cracks spreading like a spider web. From the mirror, Sarah's figure appeared clearer than ever. But this time, her face no longer evoked any of the identity of the 8th grade girl from the day before. Her eyes were empty, the corners of her mouth were torn into a twisted smile. Her pale hand pressed hard against the glass, each finger scratching wildly to find a way out. Kevin stared blankly at the scene, his eyes sparkling as if he was enchanted. He stretched his hand forward, whispering Sarah's name. Michael couldn't bear it anymore, shouting Kevin's name loudly, but the scream seemed to be swallowed by the narrow space. Lisa burst into tears, her voice sobbing, begging Kevin to stop, but he still approached the mirror, his eyes filled with fanaticism. Suddenly, the mirror made a deafening cracking sound. A large crack opened, and thick darkness poured out like smoke. The cold wind whistled through, extinguishing the candle. In that moment, Michael clearly saw Sarah's hand reaching out, tightly grabbing Kevin's wrist. The boy screamed, but did not resist. On the contrary, Kevin squeezed Sarah's hand even tighter, like a thirsty man who had just found a source of water. Lisa screamed, rushing to pull Kevin back. Michael also rushed forward, trying his best to pull his friend away from that monstrous hand. The room was dark. Only screams and the terrifying sound of broken glass could be heard. Kevin was pulled towards the mirror, his upper body almost disappearing behind the glass. Michael used all his strength to hold his friend's shoulder, while Lisa cried and begged Dot in desperation. Michael remembered the last lines in the notebook. He shouted out a few words to break the ritual, although he was not sure if it was the right way. Strangely, the cracks on the mirror shook violently. A piercing screech rang out. Sarah's hand jerked back inside, the darkness receded. And then the crack closed. Kevin fell to the floor, gasping for breath. Michael and Lisa also collapsed, cold sweat pouring down their bodies. The three of them looked at the mirror in panic. It returned to silence. Only the old cracks remained. But in that moment, Michael clearly saw Sarah's eyes still staring from the other side, filled with hatred and despair. The group quickly ran away from the bathroom. On the way, Kevin seemed to be unconscious. He kept muttering that Sarah needed to be saved, that they couldn't leave her. Michael and Lisa could only help him walk, terror rising in their hearts that this wasn't over. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. In his dream, he saw the mirror shattering, hundreds of small pieces of glass floating in the air, each reflecting Sarah's face. She called his name, her voice echoing throughout the room. Michael woke up, his heart pounding. When he looked at the mirror on the table, he was startled to realize that a small crack had appeared, even though it had been there during the day. Lisa was no better. She kept hearing the sound of tapping every time she passed the mirror in the house. One time, while brushing her hair in the mirror, Lisa saw Sarah's figure behind her. But when she turned around, there was no one there. The fear gradually eroded her spirit, leaving her exhausted. Kevin became increasingly unstable. He stopped eating, had dark circles under his eyes, and stared into space. His friends whispered that Kevin was living between two worlds, no longer himself. Michael realized that, despite stopping the ritual that day, the darkness in the mirror still refused to let go. The story is not over yet. Watch the next episode to see what happens when the mirror obsession begins to spread throughout the school. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk after the incident. In the bathroom, Michael, Lisa, and Kevin tried to act like everything was over, but it wasn't. In the following days, all three of them noticed strange changes throughout the school. The mirrors in the classrooms, hallways, and laboratories began to develop faint cracks, just like the mirrors in the old bathrooms at first. There were only a few small cracks, but then they spread, as if something inside wanted to escape. Some other students also began to gossip. Some said that when they washed their hands in the bathroom, they heard a tapping sound from the mirror. Some claimed to see a shadow flash by for a moment. The rumors made the atmosphere in the school even more stifling. Everyone whispered about true horror stories that were gradually becoming true. Michael felt the pressure growing heavier. Every time he passed by a mirror, he avoided looking at his reflection. Lisa lived in fear, to the point of covering the mirror in her bedroom with a towel so she could sleep peacefully. But Kevin was different. Instead of being scared, he was drawn to her. Kevin was convinced that Sarah was still trapped somewhere in the broken mirrors, and he had to find a way to save her. One afternoon, after Michael and Lisa left school, they found Kevin standing in the library, his eyes glued to the mirror next to the bookshelf. He put his hand on the glass and whispered Sarah's name. This time, Michael heard a clear response, weak but resonant. Sarah's voice was trembling, pleading for help, but behind it was a cold tone that made Michael shiver. Lisa screamed to pull Kevin away, but he jerked his hand back, his eyes bloodshot. Kevin said that they were selfish, that Sarah was still alive and suffering, and that only he had the courage to free her. Michael clutched the notebook in his hand, wavering between telling the terrible truth in the final pages and keeping quiet so as not to make Kevin more hysterical. That night, Michael opened the notebook again. The yellowed pages revealed a horrifying truth. The scribbled text stated that when the ritual was interrupted, the spirit would not only reside in the original mirror, but would spread to other mirrors, connected to the place where the ritual took place. That meant that the darkness was no longer confined to one place, but could creep throughout the school, even the houses where the students lived. Michael's spine shivered. If this was true, the entire town would soon be haunted. He decided to warn Lisa immediately. The next day, Lisa confessed to Michael that she was experiencing strange phenomena at home as well. The bathroom mirror would sometimes become foggy even when no one was using it, and she would hear a soft knocking sound in the middle of the night. Michael squeezed his friend's hand, both of them knowing that the thing had begun to spread beyond the school. Meanwhile, Kevin was increasingly distancing himself from them. He seemed to no longer be himself. He talked to himself, his eyes always looking into the distance. One day, Michael caught Kevin standing in front of the mirror in an empty classroom. And the reflection in the mirror was not a normal Kevin. In the mirror, Kevin's shadow smiled a twisted smile. His eyes were pitch black, while the real Kevin was silent. That image haunted Michael endlessly. The climax came one evening, when the whole school was almost empty. Michael and Lisa heard a noise coming from the lab. They crept in and saw Kevin drawing strange symbols on the floor with chalk, placing a candle in front of the mirror. Michael shouted loudly to stop, but Kevin did not hear. His eyes were distant. His voice was steady, as if he was communicating with something inside. The mirror shook, cracks spreading like tree roots. A familiar but distorted face appeared. Sarah, with empty eyes and a strange smile, stared at the three of them. Her voice echoed throughout the room, both a cry for help and a command. Kevin moved closer, while Michael and Lisa tried to pull him back in horror. The lights in the room went out, leaving only a red glow from the mirror. The bony hand reached out again, clawing at the tiled floor. A high-pitched screech rang out, causing Lisa to clutch her ears and fall to her knees. Michael screamed in despair, trying to use the notebook to read the ritual-breaking incantations backwards, but this time, the characters on the paper seemed to shift, becoming illegible, as if an invisible hand was blocking them. Kevin almost touched the mirror. In that moment, Sarah in the mirror smiled a terrifying smile. Her eyes flashed, and the entire room shook violently. Michael knew that if he let Kevin take another step, he would disappear forever like Sarah. The story is not over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens when Kevin decides to choose between the real world and the darkness inside the mirror. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, the shrill screech echoed in the lab, almost paralyzing Michael and Lisa. Kevin was pulled close to the mirror, the bony hand from the other side tightly gripping his arm. The red light from the mirror shone out, illuminating Kevin's face, making it pale and full of passion. Michael screamed, gripping his friend's shoulder, using all his strength to hold Kevin back. Lisa also hugged Kevin's leg tightly, tears streaming down her face in fear. The mirror shook violently, cracks spreading across the glass like a spider web. In it, Sarah's face gradually appeared, but it was no longer the Sarah they knew. Her eyes were empty, her smile was distorted, her skin wrinkled as if her life had been sucked out. She moved her lips, calling Kevin's name. her hoarse voice echoing throughout the room. Kevin seemed to have lost all will to resist. He let the other hand pull him away, his mouth whispering in response to Sarah. Michael was desperate, remembering the lines in the notebook he had read. In a moment of crisis, he shouted the backwards notes that the notebook had written at the bottom of the page. Immediately, the room shook violently. The flickering candle went out. The mirror cracked horribly, the red light turning into a dim blue light. The hand in the mirror was jerked back, and Kevin fell flat on the floor. The mirror fell silent, leaving only zigzag cracks, no longer moving. Michael gasped, his heart pounding. Lisa sat down on the ground, her whole body shaking. Kevin lay motionless for a long time, then opened his eyes, gasping for breath. But his gaze remained distant, as if a part of his soul had been trapped on the other side of the glass. The three children fell silent in horror. When he had calmed down a bit, Michael pulled out the notebook. He noticed that many of the words had changed. Before, the words were blurry and hard to read, but now they were clear as if they had just been written. The warning line appeared clearly. When the ritual is repeated many times, the imprisoned soul will merge with the darkness. The caller will be bound and gradually lose his humanity. To cut it off, you must find the source of the first mirror. Michael read aloud, making Lisa dizzy. They had never thought that the mirror in the bathroom was just one of many links. If there was an original mirror, then it was the cause. Kevin sat up, his voice hoarse, whispering that Sarah had told him the location. But his words were full of contradictions, sometimes saying it was in the school basement, sometimes saying it was deep in the old warehouse. Michael and Lisa looked at each other, suspecting that Kevin had been too deeply affected. But they also understood that if they did not find the original mirror, none of them would ever escape this obsession. The next day, the school was filled with horror rumors. Many students said that when they passed by the mirror in the hallway, they saw a strange figure walking behind them. Some people even insisted on hearing whispers calling their names. The teachers thought it was just a group prank, but the fear grew. Michael and Lisa decided to sneak down to the school's basement, which had long been locked because it was damp and dangerous. Kevin insisted on going with them, his eyes shining with an inexplicable fanaticism. The three of them carried flashlights, their hearts pounding as they walked down the old stairs. The cold air blew from the mossy walls. The musty smell made them suffocate. The dark basement stretched out, filled with old wooden boxes and broken tables and chairs. In the corner, Michael discovered a dusty mirror, much larger than the others. The glass was cracked into countless lines, but it still reflected the flashlight's light strangely. As soon as Kevin saw it, he immediately rushed over, muttering Sarah's name. Michael quickly pulled him back, but Kevin struggled, his eyes crazy. Lisa screamed, begging Kevin to wake up. In the chaos, the mirror emitted a dull sound like a drum from deep underground. The mirror's surface gradually darkened, and Sarah's face slowly appeared, clearer than ever. She was no longer distorted like before, but almost real. Tears streamed down her face, her hands reaching out for help. Lisa choked, her weak heart, believing that Sarah was still alive. But Michael's back was cold. He noticed a smile flash at the corner of Sarah's mouth, too fast for Lisa to notice, but enough for Michael to understand that this might be a trap. Kevin suddenly broke free from his friend's grasp, running straight to the mirror. Michael and Lisa rushed after him, but it was too late. Kevin placed both hands on the glass, a flash of blue light engulfing him. The mirror shook violently, and a creepy laugh echoed throughout the basement. Michael screamed in despair, but couldn't pull Kevin out. The story wasn't over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens when Kevin fully sinks into the world beyond the mirror. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, the blue light from the mirror in the basement flared up violently, engulfing Kevin. Michael and Lisa screamed, rushing to pull him back, but only touched the cold air. Kevin was sucked into the glass like smoke, and then disappeared completely. The mirror shook for a long time before returning to silence, leaving behind a deadly silence. Lisa collapsed to the floor, sobbing, her trembling hands clutching the hem of her shirt. Michael stood there, frozen, sweat dripping down his back, his eyes glued to the mirror. For a moment, he saw not only himself and Lisa reflected in it, but also Kevin standing behind him, his face pale, his eyes pitch black. Kevin moved his lips as if he wanted to say something, but the sound was swallowed. Only a soft hiss could be heard. Michael pulled Lisa out of the basement. They ran up the hallway, their hearts pounding, but the feeling of being watched did not leave. The mirror seemed to have opened a door, and Kevin now belonged to the other world. During the following days, Michael and Lisa could not concentrate on their studies. Friends around them began to ask where Kevin was, why he had missed so many days of school. Michael did not dare to tell the truth. He only answered vaguely that Kevin was sick. But deep down, he knew that Kevin had disappeared like Sarah. That night, Michael could not sleep. In the darkness, he heard a gentle tapping sound from the mirror in his room. When he turned on the light, he was startled to see Kevin standing right behind him in the mirror, his lifeless eyes staring at him. Michael turned round, but the room was empty. He trembled as he covered the mirror with a cloth, but the tapping sound continued to echo throughout the night, as if reminding him that Kevin was still somewhere out there. Lisa suffered the same fate. She told Michael that every time she passed by the mirror in the school hallway, she saw Kevin's shadow behind her. Once, she even heard Kevin calling her name in the girls' bathroom. The sound was weak, as if it was coming from far away, scaring Lisa to the point of bursting into tears. Michael decided to open the book again. He flipped to the part about the original mirror. The shaky lines showed that the writer had also been haunted. The last line said that this mirror was no ordinary object, but was created from an ancient ritual to trap souls. It absorbed those who dared to call its name and never returned it. The more people were sucked in, the stronger it became. Michael shuddered, remembering Sarah's eyes and fleeting smile in the mirror. Perhaps she was no longer herself, but just a part of that entity. And now Kevin was also gradually becoming a part of the darkness. While reading, Michael suddenly heard footsteps outside the door. He turned off the flashlight in surprise, holding his breath to listen. The footsteps slowed, then stopped right in front of the door. A familiar voice rang out, weak but clear. "Michael, open the door for me." It was Kevin's voice. Michael broke out in a cold sweat. His heart stopped. He knew Kevin couldn't be here. He pressed his ear to the door, but heard nothing. When he peeked through the crack, the hallway was completely empty. The next morning, Michael told Lisa. They both trembled, knowing that the mirror was trying to drag them along. Lisa whispered that they had to destroy the original mirror in the basement, but Michael hesitated. The notebook clearly stated, "Destroy the mirror while the soul is still trapped. It will forever turn into a nightmare, never to be released. This meant that if they broke the mirror, Sarah and Kevin would never return. Lisa burst into tears, sobbing that Sarah might be gone, but Kevin still had a chance. Michael felt hopeless. He was torn between breaking the mirror to escape the haunting, or finding a way to free his friend. During the argument, the lights in the classroom suddenly went out. The mirror in the classroom glowed faintly, and from it came a soft laugh. Michael and Lisa were speechless. In the mirror, Sarah and Kevin stood side by side, their faces pale, their mouths moving in unintelligible words. Both of them held out their hands, as if inviting. Michael held Lisa's hand tightly, his heart pounding like a drum. They knew that the choice they were about to make would determine their fate. The story is not over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what Michael and Lisa will do when faced with the decision to destroy the original mirror or continue the ritual to save their friend. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, the flashlight. In Michael's hand shook, the flickering light shining on Lisa's pale face. The two children stood in front of the original mirror in the basement, breathing heavily. On the glass, Sarah and Kevin's silhouettes were clearly visible. Their faces looked desperate at first glance, but their eyes flickered with something indescribable, both familiar and strange. Michael held the notebook tightly, rereading the last lines. The scribbled handwriting appeared like a fateful warning. Destroy the mirror while the soul is still trapped will cause them to be trapped forever, turning into an endless nightmare. To save them, you must repeat the ritual with the blood of the summoner. Lisa trembled, her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head repeatedly, not wanting to accept the truth. No, we can't. What does the blood of the summoner mean, Michael? If you do that, you will die. Michael was silent, his hand holding the notebook so tightly that it trembled in the mirror. Sarah raised her hand to the glass, her lips moving as if calling their names. Kevin stood back, but his eyes were dark, without light. Seeing her friend like that, Lisa burst into tears, but still cried out in despair. Sarah, if it's really you, give us a sign. At that moment, the candle Michael placed at her feet suddenly flared up. The light shone directly into the mirror, and Sarah's image changed slightly. In just a split second, the mirror reflected Sarah's old face, a gentle smile, clear eyes. Lisa was stunned, her heart aching. But then, that image immediately disappeared, replaced by a distorted face with a creepy smile. Michael stepped back, his heart pounding. He was no longer sure if Sarah really existed or was just an illusion to lure them. Kevin, in the mirror, whispered, the echoes echoing throughout the basement. Open the door, let us out. The voice mixed with a horrible screech, making the air thick and suffocating. Lisa held her head, screaming in panic. She begged Michael to destroy the mirror, to leave everything behind. But Michael hesitated. He felt that deep in his mind there was still a part of the real Sarah, and if he broke the mirror now, he might regret it forever. The knocking sounded, getting louder and louder. The glass began to swell as if something inside wanted to spill out. Michael knew they couldn't stand still any longer. He looked at Lisa, his voice hoarse. If I have to do it, I'll be the one to sacrifice myself. I was the one who called first. Lisa screamed in protest, holding Michael's hand tightly. But the boy's eyes were determined, regret and determination mixed together, making Lisa choke up. Michael opened the book, rereading the ritual. But this time, instead of just calling out the name, he had to use his own blood. Michael took the rusty knife from the old shelf, trembling as he cut his palm. Blood dripped onto the tile floor, spreading into crimson drops. The mirror immediately reacted. The red light flared up. The knocking sound turned into a terrifying scream. Sarah, in the mirror, rushed towards the glass, her hands pounding repeatedly. Kevin stood right next to her, his face twisted. Both of them screamed Michael's name. Lisa was so scared that she collapsed, tears streaming down her face. But Michael remained resolute, his bloody hand pressed against the glass. As soon as the blood touched, the mirror shook violently. The glass seemed to soften, sucking the blood like an endless thirst. From inside, a hand reached out, this time no longer pale and bony, but like a normal human hand. Michael's heart skipped a beat, thinking that it was really Sarah. But just as he was about to grab it, the hand turned into a dry bone with long, sharp nails. It grabbed Michael's wrist, pulling him hard towards the mirror. Michael screamed, his whole body trembling. Lisa rushed forward to hold her friend tightly, but that strength was too terrifying. In an instant, Michael found himself standing in a dark space, surrounded by hundreds of shattered mirrors, each reflecting the faces of Sarah and Kevin, all distorted. Their voices echoed everywhere, repeating his name. Michael knew he had stepped one foot into the other world. The real Lisa cried out, trying to pull Michael back. She shouted loudly, reading the words in the notebook backwards, although it was not sure if it worked. The mirror shook violently. The ear-piercing sound of breaking echoed throughout the basement. Michael was torn between two worlds, blue and red lights swirling. Finally, he broke free, collapsing to the floor, his face pale. But when Lisa looked up, she was horrified to realize that the mirror had not closed. The shadows of Sarah and Kevin were still standing there, their eyes more terrifying than ever. The story is not over yet. Watch the next episode to see what happens when the original mirror fully awakens and the darkness prepares to escape. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk in the cold basement, the flickering candlelight reflected on the original mirror, making the atmosphere stifling. Michael and Lisa stood close together, their hearts pounding. On the glass, the images of Sarah and Kevin appeared clearly. Sarah raised her hand to her eyes sparkling as if asking for help. Kevin stood behind, his eyes dark, his face distorted and unpredictable. Michael held the old notebook tightly in his hand. The blurred lines were now clearly visible under the candlelight, as if written specifically for this moment. To free the imprisoned soul, the final ritual must be performed with the blood of the summoner. Michael's heart tightened. From the moment he read the first ritual aloud in the bathroom, he had been the summoner. That meant that now, only he could open that door. Lisa was shocked, her face pale. She held Michael's arm tightly, her voice trembling. No, you can't. If you use your blood, you'll die. That's what the notebook wants. The thing in the mirror is just tempting you. But Michael looked at Sarah's eyes in the mirror, his heart aching. Deep down, he still wanted to believe that Sarah was still out there somewhere. He pulled out the rusty knife from the shelf, his palm trembling. Lisa shouted to stop him, But Michael gritted his teeth and slashed deep into his palm. Bright red blood fell to the floor, spreading in horrible streaks. Immediately, the mirror reacted. It shook, a bright red light emitted, accompanied by a piercing screech. Sarah in the mirror rushed towards the glass, her mouth moving to call Michael's name. In an instant, her face returned to normal, her eyes as bright as ever. Lisa was stunned, her heart stopped. But just a second later, a creepy smile appeared, her eyes darkened, and a strange laughter echoed throughout the basement. Michael trembled as he pressed his bloody hand against the glass. Instantly, the mirror sucked in blood like a parched man. The red light turned to blue, swirling like an open door. A hand reached out from the other side, at first smooth as real human skin. Michael's heart skipped a beat, believing it was Sarah. But as soon as he touched it, the hand transformed into a dry bone with sharp nails. It grabbed his arm, pulling him hard. Michael screamed. His whole body was pulled against the mirror. Lisa panicked and hugged his shoulder, sobbing. The room shook violently. Wooden boxes fell and broke with a loud bang. In an instant, Michael found himself standing in a dark space, surrounded by hundreds of floating mirrors. Each mirror reflected Sarah and Kevin's faces, all twisted and distorted. Voices rang out at the same time, calling his name in despair and mockery. Lisa, in real life, trembled as she read the lines in the notebook backwards, hoping to save Michael. The mirror shook violently, the light flickering continuously. Michael felt his body being torn in two, one half sucked into the darkness, the other still held tightly by Lisa Dot in that chaotic moment. Michael saw the real Sarah appear among the countless illusions. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her weak voice rang out. "Michael, don't believe it. It's not me." Then the image disappeared, replaced by a distorted face with a grim smile. Michael was shocked. His heart ached. He shouted loudly, using the last of his strength to pull his hand away from the bony hand. The mirror cracked violently, the sound resounding like thunder. Lisa pulled Michael hard and he fell to the floor. Both of them were panting, cold sweat soaked their backs. But when they looked up, the mirror was still shining brightly. Sarah and Kevin's silhouettes were still standing there, their eyes fiercer than ever. Lisa sobbed in despair, while Michael collapsed, blood still flowing from his palm. They understood that the ritual was not over, and Michael's blood had only begun to open the door. The entity in the mirror is still not letting go. The story is not over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens when the original mirror is completely opened and the darkness is about to escape into the real world. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, the room fell. Silent after the deafening explosion, save for Michael and Lisa's gasps. They lay flat on the tiled floor, sweat and dust covering their clothes. Shards of broken mirrors littered the basement, glinting with a faint blue light like hundreds of staring eyes. Michael struggled to get up, trembling as he looked around. He hoped it was all over, but his heart was heavy. Lisa sat up, tears streaming down her face, gently grasping her friend's hand. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with exhaustion and fear. But then, Michael was startled. In a small piece of mirror next to his feet, he saw Kevin smiling, his eyes pitch black. Lisa saw it too. She screamed, throwing the mirror away, but as it shattered into smaller pieces, Each piece revealed Kevin's face, distorted and creepy. Laughter echoed throughout the basement, making them both cringe. Michael shakily picked up the notebook, but when he opened it, the pages were now blank, without any words. He panicked, his heart stopped. The book had clearly guided them here, to open the door, and now it had left them in the middle of an unfinished curse. Lisa screamed in despair, kicking hard at another piece of mirror. But instead of disappearing, the mirror glowed brighter. Sarah's silhouette appeared, her eyes filled with tears. "Lisa, ... save me, ... Her voice echoed, weak, but her lips curved into a cold smile. Lisa burst into tears, clutching her head. Not knowing what was real, darkness from the mirror shards began to creep out, crawling along the floor and walls. Tiny, pale hands reached out from the mirror shards, scratching wildly, leaving long scratches on the tiled floor. Michael pulled Lisa up, both of them panicking to find a way out. But the stairs leading up were now submerged in a thick black fog, making it impossible to see where the exit was. Dozens of children's laughter rang out, mixed with cries. Michael trembled, but still tried to comfort Lisa. "We have to gather all the mirror pieces. If we let them scatter, darkness will spread everywhere." Lisa shook her head in panic, but reluctantly complied. They bent down, picking up each broken mirror piece. But every time they touched, a cold shiver ran down their spines, as if a soul was entering their bodies. Michael gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain, while Lisa sobbed because of the whispers in her head. The imprisoned souls kept calling for help, begging to be released. After gathering more than half, the two of them placed them close together. The blue light from the mirror pieces merged, swirling like a small gate. From within, Kevin's face appeared again, this time clear and alive. "Michael, Lisa, save me. Don't leave me here." His voice trembled, choked with emotion. Lisa cried out, trying to reach out, but Michael held her tight. He looked straight into Kevin's eyes. For a moment, there was a strange light in those eyes, not Kevin's. Michael screamed, "That's not Kevin. Don't believe it." Kevin's face twisted, his mouth stretched into a monstrous grin. The laughter echoed throughout the basement. The darkness exploded violently, pulling Lisa back onto the floor. Hands reached out from the mirror, fragments, grabbing her legs and pulling her in. Lisa screamed, desperately clutching the tiled floor. Michael rushed forward, severing her hand from the other hands. But the pulling became stronger. In a panic, Michael grabbed the rusty knife and slammed it down on the mirror fragments. There was a loud crash, a flash of blue light, and a series of painful screams. The darkness retreated, and Lisa was released, trembling as she sat up. But the more fragments were broken, the brighter the remaining ones seemed to glow, as if absorbing the power of the souls that had just been lost. Michael understood that breaking each fragment only made the darkness stronger. He realized in despair that they couldn't destroy each fragment. There had to be another way to lock them all away. Lisa hugged Michael, choking. "If we don't do anything, we'll all be swallowed. But if we continue, we'll die." Michael looked around, sweat pouring down. For a moment, his eyes fell on the candle that had been extinguished. A thought flashed through his mind. The ritual always required fire and blood. If blood had opened it, perhaps fire would be the only thing to lock it. He said to Lisa, trembling, "We have to burn all the mirrors. Use fire, not knives." Lisa was stunned, but then nodded. The two of them quickly found dry pieces of wood from the old crate, lighting them with the lighter in Michael's backpack. the fire flared up, illuminating the entire basement. They threw each piece of mirror into the fire. The fire burned fiercely, and the screams echoed horribly. The whole room shook, as if the burned souls were resisting. Black smoke filled the air, obscuring their vision. Michael held Lisa tightly, both of them crying amid the screams. The fire gradually engulfed them. Laughter, crying, and the calling of their names mingled into a terrifying chorus. Finally, as the fire spread through the basement, all was silent. All that remained was black ash. Michael and Lisa collapsed, exhausted. They thought it was finally over, but when they looked up, they were both stunned. In the ashes, a tiny piece of mirror was still intact, glowing a bright red, like a heartbeat. The story is not over yet. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens when the last piece of mirror begins to spread the curse beyond the basement. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. The fire had died down. The basement was covered in ash and acrid smell. Michael and Lisa lay on the tile floor, exhausted, thinking they had finally escaped the nightmare. But then the red light flickered from the ashes, making them both freeze. A small piece of mirror the size of a hand was still intact, glowing rhythmically like a beating heart. Lisa burst into tears, screaming, "We did everything. Why isn't it over yet?" Michael was silent, his eyes glued to the mirror. In it, Sarah's face was reflected, her eyes glistening with tears. She whispered, "Michael, I'm in so much pain. Don't leave me." Her weak voice made his heart ache. But then, that face distorted, her eyes pitch black. Her crooked smile rang out with a creepy laugh. Michael trembled as he held the old notebook, but when he opened it, the pages were not only blank, but also began to crumble into dust, falling apart. The book disappeared before their eyes, leaving them with a feeling of emptiness. Lisa trembled and hugged him, whispering desperately, "It never wanted to help us. It was all a trap." The red mirror shook, new cracks appeared. From within, bony fingers reached out, scratching hard at the tile floor. The creepy sound echoed, like hundreds of nails scratching metal. The cold air spread throughout the basement. Both of their breathing became labored. Lisa collapsed, her eyes looking at Michael in panic. "If we don't destroy it now, everything will end up out of control." Michael nodded, tightening his grip on the rusty knife in his hand. But when he raised the knife, the mirror glowed brightly. A strong wind blew away the dust. In an instant, the basement transformed. Michael and Lisa were stunned to find themselves standing in an endless corridor of mirrors. On each mirror, thousands of faces appeared, all distorted, screaming. Sarah and Kevin stood closest, their dark eyes staring at them. Sarah whispered, "You can never escape. It's just the beginning." Michael trembled, holding Lisa's hand tightly. "This is the last piece of the mirror. It contains the entire curse. If we don't destroy it, it will continue to spread to the world outside." Lisa sobbed, shaking her head. "But if we do, Sarah and Kevin will disappear forever." A fierce scream rang out, arms reaching out from the mirror, pulling Lisa. She screamed loudly, trying to cling to Michael. He used all his strength, pulling his friend back. In the chaos, Michael saw Sarah's eyes light up for a moment, her gaze filled with pain, as if begging to be freed. It was at that moment that he understood that Sarah was truly gone, only her soul chained to the darkness. Michael screamed, gathering all his strength to smash the knife into the mirror piece. A loud bang, a bright red light exploded, engulfing both of them in a vortex of dazzling light. All the laughter, the crying, the calling of their names screamed and then fell silent. When the light faded, Michael and Lisa woke up, found themselves in the schoolyard. The sky was bright. The basement had disappeared as if it had never existed. But in Michael's hand, a tiny piece of mirror was still there, dark, no longer glowing. He held it tightly, his heart heavy. Lisa whispered, "We escaped. But how many more mirrors still exist out there?" Michael looked up at the row of classroom windows reflecting the sunlight. For a moment, he saw Kevin's shadow flash by, smiling eerily. The story is not over yet. Watch the next episode to see what happens when the curse begins to spread beyond the school, spreading terror throughout the town.